Hey everybody, welcome to Theology AMA, because you can ask me anything. It's not just me, I'm joined here by a newer friend, Jon Norman from Norwich, England, and I got to tour his brilliant, amazing church over there. I love British culture so much. So were you Blur or Oasis?
Oasis.
Wow, yeah, I catch that vibe. Or Pulp.
Yeah, loved Oasis.
Oh my gosh, that was such an amazing, I was only like a little kid, but as I started reading about it later, it was such a fun time.
And now they're back.
They're back, selling out arenas. You gonna go?
Reconciliation works.
That's right, if there's enough dollars behind it.
Apparently. Am I going to go? Good question. Nathan has 2 tickets, so I'm hoping.
Yeah, well, he's got to give one to you. Is it over there that he has the tickets?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. You're in Norwich, and I want to talk about your church and everything, but that's where Julianne of Norwich, the like iconic mystic, was from.
That's right. Yeah.
That is so cool, and you're born and raised there.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. And so there's all of this. Is it a popular thing that people care about over there, or is it kind of a niche thing?
I think it's a little more niche, especially Americans take a lot of interest in it. Mm-hmm. And the church where she lived and she died is actually right there in the center of the city, Julian of Norwich Chapel. So
that's amazing.
There's always people out there, and yeah, it's amazing. My friend actually did a PhD on it.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds like a good thing to do a PhD on.
Yeah.
Because the reading would just be wild.
Yeah.
Because you read like early church stuff, it's like really cool and pretty easy to read with the translation and stuff. And then you read like reformers, they're really easy to read. But you read these mystics, that like you read St. John of the Cross, that content is crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh man, Teresa of Avila, I love stuff like that. And so many of those people were British.
Yeah, that's right.
It just was such a haven for that medieval spirituality.
Yeah.
Is there like a legacy of that still, or is it all awash in atheism?
I think sadly it's disappeared. I mean, the Wesley brothers, Spurgeon, so much of Wilberforce, so much of the Reformation, and it happened out of the UK. Mm-hmm. Yet now, it just feels like forgotten.
Yeah.
But I think it's important we keep speaking about these people, bringing their stories back to life. We actually did a series in church on really British Christian
and
heroes.
There's so many to choose from.
So many.
So you probably had more than you could do.
I think we went 20 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
It was fantastic.
There's so many. Yeah, Spurgeon is iconic. So you...
I'm actually related to Charles Haddon Spurgeon.
Really?
Yeah, crazy.
How?
Through my dad's, his auntie was connected.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
So you should go up there and do 60-minute sermons on like half of one verse.
With a cigar.
With a cigar.
Yeah.
One minimum.
Boom.
Yeah. So when help people who are watching this from the States understand kind of like the state of the church in your city and area.
So some crazy things about, first of all, Norwich, for those who are watching, is the furthest eastern city in the United Kingdom. It sits right on the coast there. Hitler actually wanted it as his headquarters. Wow. So his plan was he would have his HQ because it was the closest city to Germany. So that was his plan. He was going to take over the city hall and move his life there. So it's got an interesting history. There's more church buildings in the center of Norwich than any center of any other city in the world.
Wow.
So we have, I mean, when you visited us last year, you've got a cathedral and then you've got like 6 little churches just next to it. I mean, if you think about that, someone starts a church in your city and then someone starts a church literally next door. So it's got some interesting history. But now they did a survey at the last faith-based survey was done around 10 years ago, and Norwich is the most godless city in the country.
Wow.
So if you think about it, we've got most church buildings in the density of the city in the world, but we've got the least, with the most godless as well. So
that's unbelievable.
But there is a shifting happening. It feels like God is doing something. We moved back there in 2014 from living in South Africa for 7 years. Mm-hmm. Started Soul Church, so just over 10 years ago, and we've seen God do some amazing things. Like it feels like God chooses the foolish things of this world to conform the wise. And can any good thing come out of a small place like Nazareth?
Because Christians are a minority in
Totally.
England, and even of Christians, the majority, you were telling me before, are Anglican.
Yeah, so the Church of England, COE as we call it, that would be where the majority of Christians would gather on a Sunday, but that's in major decline.
Wow.
Because of their stance on various topical issues,
and because it becomes the faith of their fathers, not the faith of them.
Correct.
And
it becomes religious.
Gen X and millennials really moved away from that.
Yeah.
Wow. So then how does that, are you ministering to a lot of people that are like, hey, I don't know if I was saved. I was in the Church of England, but now I'm coming here and I know I'm saved now. Is there a lot of people like that?
Yeah, I think they've had the scales removed from their eyes. They've understood what religion was and now what relationship is.
Yeah.
So they've come in and gone, I thought I was in a relationship, but actually I was just under a religious cloud. And, there's certain things about the Church of England I love. So it's not...
Of course.
But, there's also so much rooted in, I don't know, the liturgy and, those things that hold people back.
And I think that's what Jesus was talking about with the new wine and the new wineskins. And I think there's a lot of amazing things about the Anglicanism and everything in the States that I've seen. And I love a good liturgy, but I didn't really understand that line at the end of the parable for a long time when Jesus said, no one after tasting old wine wants new. Yeah. I didn't understand that. And then I studied it last year and I was like, oh, I get it finally. He's saying people like the old ways.
Yeah.
He's not saying they're better. He's saying people like them more.
It makes them feel safe.
Totally. I know what this is going to be.
I know it's going to be. So the Christmas service at the cathedral has been the same format, exactly the same for the last 100 years.
Wow.
So then you go, well, I did this with granddad. I did this with grandma.
Totally.
So it then just becomes really just part of your DNA rather than just the core part of who you are.
That's right. It's old wineskins. It's closer to Christmas dinner than it is to surrender and redemption.
But if we went to a sports game and the game was exactly the same every week, we'd get bored and never come back if we knew what the score was going to be.
Yeah.
The reason stadiums are packed throughout, the nation is because every game is different.
Do you have a lot of soccer hooligans that attend your church?
That's a good question. We actually don't, but there's definitely some undercover ones.
That's a hard crew to disciple.
Yeah.
Those guys are wild.
They are, but they do love the grace message.
Yeah.
Because they need it.
Totally. And that actually is a really beautiful way of saying it, because is that not what Jesus was saying about the prostitutes? He was like, you think they're so bad. They get me.
They get me.
Yeah, exactly.
So we definitely, I remember once we got the our local paper, and every week they have the 5 criminals they've locked up in prison and or on the run, and 2 out of the 5 people on the run in the city came to our church. I was like, this is cool. We're reaching the right people.
Yes. Okay, I'm on the run from the law. Where am I going? Soul Church.
Soul Church.
And you had this thing at your church that I thought was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And because you were showing me around, and I was like, what is that? And you were like, that is our supermarket. What do you guys call it?
The Soul Social Supermarket.
Yeah, and what was the thinking behind that? Because when we were there, people were going in and shopping, and it just blessed my heart so much.
Yeah, I think really the thinking is, in the UK, people are so anti. So if you're part of the church thing, I'm talking about the majority of people are anti what we do. Okay. Anti-God, anti-faith, anti-church, the anti. So we had to think about ways we could break those barriers down, because you can have all the theology in the world, they're not interested in that. You can have all the wisdom in the world, they're not interested in that. What they're interested in is, do you care for me?
Yeah.
So as a church, we had to change our approach a little bit. So we opened a supermarket inside the church. So when you walk into Soul Church, you walk in the main doors, the first thing you'll see on your right-hand side isn't a church building, a prayer room, a Bible. You will see a supermarket. That's right. And it sends a clear message to everybody who doesn't like us. Well, I don't mind that bit.
Exactly.
And the fact that they don't mind that bit, they might be open to the other bits.
That's so good. And I sometimes read the Reddit atheist thread because I'm curious about what people say.
Yeah.
And they'll say Christians are hypocrites, Christians don't care about the poor, and that certainly is not true as it pertains to real, true Jesus followers, but it really is true as it pertains to Christian culture.
Yeah.
And so I loved seeing this because it looked to me like the tip of the spear of proving to people, no, we're putting money, time, resources.
Yeah.
So how does it work? Do people donate the food, and then people in the community, if they don't have enough money, can come and buy some stuff?
Yeah, how it works is all the major supermarkets, Asda, which is our Walmart, Sainsbury's, all the various big supermarkets, they have to give a small percentage of all their food away, or sell it at a fraction of the cost to a company called Fair Share, of which we then buy it from Fair Share at a very low cost, and then we're either able to distribute it for a small cost or give it away depending on what the situation is.
Because it gives people dignity to be able to buy something at a small cost rather than just have it be shoved in their hands.
Yeah.
And they can pick the things off the shelf, which is an incredible dignity to people who can't afford to go to the supermarket.
That's right. And the supermarket, we've laid it out, it's not just a food bank, as they call it. It's actually a supermarket. So people come in and they treat it that way. And I think we now have 3,000 regular customers a month will come through the doors.
Wow. And it's a lot of the same people, I would assume.
Yeah, and then so many people have found Jesus.
Of course, because they're looking at something and they're like, why would someone do this?
Yeah.
Why? Because you're not making money off of it. If anything, it's taking resources from the church.
We have 4 staff now.
Yeah, so it's a lot for you guys to run that. You have to raise all the support. You have to do all the stuff. You have to make sure everything is good, all of that.
Yeah.
You have to deal with all the legality of selling food and
Health and
everything.
safety.
Exactly. You have all of that stuff, and people see that, and they're like, wow, there must be something here.
I explain running the supermarket is basically like pushing a full trolley up a hill always. So like it's just always hard work. Yeah. But it's just hard work.
Totally.
Someone's got to drive to Fair Share, fill the van up, put it in the storeroom, unpack it, go through stock check. It's just hard work. Now, it's hard work's fine if you're getting a financial reward.
Totally.
But our reward is change lives. And so we don't just stop with the food. We want to help people, not just give them a handout, but a hand up. And so we would then go talk to them and say, hey, have you ever thought about doing a budget course? We run a budget course.
Love that.
Have you ever thought about, your employment status? So we do a job club. So for us, it's like the food is a catalyst to spark a conversation to go, hey, how can we help you? And then they do the job. Hey, we also run a course called the Alpha course, which actually gives you some answers to some of the big questions in life.
Alpha is so big in the UK. It's unbelievable. Could you just give a brief summary of what it is to people who don't know?
Yeah, the Alpha course was started by one of my heroes, Nicky Gumbel, out of Holy Trinity Brompton, HTB in London, I think around 35 years ago. And it really is, it's built around food community. And it's a course, a 6-week course that basically helps you discover the answers to some of life's big questions like, why am I here? Why am I here? What's my purpose in life? What happens next? And, the reality is most people are searching. You can be atheist, agnostic. You can have any kind of belief, a different religion, but people are searching. So it just breaks this whole thing down. It starts with a lovely cookbook. It's free. And you sit on round tables. It's not lines, it's circles. And you just get an opportunity with your table host to ask questions.
So it's like similar to the supermarket in the sense that because it's natural and extended around food, it makes sense to people. Yeah. And because it's not like, hey, come to my temple, it's like, come to my house.
Come to your house.
And people, it's effectively, it's an evangelism ministry.
It's a tool. It's a tool. And then, so one of the things we try and do is not, do you want to come to church? We try and pitch it, hey, why don't you think about one of the courses? Do you need some help with in the supermarket? Do you want to, and so for us, church is great, but I think church is probably a little bit further down the pecking order. Sometimes we bring people to church and like, I'm never going back there. It's weird. Like some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Most churches you go in that, where in society do men sing?
Yeah. At the football match and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So men don't sing. Men don't lift their hands. That's just strange. You don't lift your hands in a library, in a gym, unless you're lifting one.
Yeah.
So some of our behaviors.
Plus, if you have naughty Pentecostals, they're praying really loudly in tongues with no interpreter. And
flags.
And that's scaring people away. And that's what the New Testament says.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, man. So then have you guys seen a lot of people come to faith through Alpha?
Yeah, many people come to faith.
It has more of a hold, that course in America. I've talked with a few people in LA who use it in their church.
Yeah.
And it just sounds absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And again, we run marriage courses. So we run, divorce and recovery courses. So it's trying to find out where people are at and then going, hey, have you thought about this?
Yeah, because Christianity is not the premium thing. It's not like you're in Alabama where everybody wants the pastor at, the front of every line and stuff. It's different. It's a different world.
It's a completely different world. And I love coming over to the States. I love the bigness and the big thinkers, the excellence and all those, the generosity. But God has called us to the context of England. And so I have to work within that.
That's right.
And that's not always preaching a faith message, because people are going, I don't get any of this.
Yeah, and that's the contextualization of the gospel that's so important.
Yeah.
People criticize it, it's always the same, blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't contextualize it at all. That's ridiculous. You have to. That's what shrewdness is.
I don't think the message changes, the methods have to.
Exactly.
The methods have to change.
And it's the old wineskins.
Yeah.
It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So let's put the gospel into this new thing or whatever, or new version of this thing. You're doing joy. Teaching on joy right now at your church. Why did you choose to do that?
It's a good question. We've had a political shift in the nation over the last 6 months. Some people are happy about that, others aren't.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely a sense of brokenness, devastation, depression, not just around politics, about a whole load of things, probably post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Financially, people are doing it tough. Depression is on the rise. Suicide is going through the roof. And we decided we've got to speak into that. We've got to speak into these things. And so, the Bible, the second fruit of the Spirit is joy.
Yes.
And joy isn't, joy is different to happiness. Happiness is connected to happenings. Joy is connected to Jesus. And so it's trying to help people go, you can still keep joy even when things aren't happening the way you want them to.
That's right.
It's so much deeper.
Yeah.
So we've just been really teaching this whole concept of choosing joy. Joy is a choice. So when you choose Jesus, you choose joy. So when you choose to open the book on a Monday morning, you're choosing joy.
Wow, and that's got to be so big. The weather, seasonal depression,
totally.
These things that are. I live in Phoenix, so we have that blessing. But you guys have a lot of that.
We have 6 hours of daylight, December, January, February.
Wow.
So, you're not getting any vitamin D or C.
Especially if you're sitting in an office.
And you sit in an office, you're driving home in dark, cold weather, and people are actually in England at the moment having to choose between heating and eating because of the economy. It is so difficult. Our electricity prices are 3 or 4 times more than yours here.
What's going on over there with some of these laws and some of these the prayer thing near the abortion clinic? Like what? I'm sure that some people don't even know about that. What is that?
Yeah, I think freedom of speech has been under attack for a while.
Yeah.
And just recently don't quote me on this. I think it's 200 yards or 250 yards. You're not allowed to pray near an abortion clinic.
That's wild.
And people have been arrested
for just standing there and praying out loud.
Which again, it's all of a sudden it's like in my lifetime, people are being arrested for praying. They're not talking to anyone. They're not forcing people.
It's peaceful.
It's peaceful. And then other things are happening in the country, different demonstrations, marches on other issues. And it's memes, encouraged.
Isn't there people posting memes and then people are like, you can't do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. What's the general consensus on that? Are people?
I think people are fearful of being cancelled.
So
there's a lot of private conversations and opinions, but people are scared to go too public on it, again, for this very reason, because if they say too much, it might affect them. So I think there's a fear level.
Man. And so then what does that do? That makes your message, your church, even the specific message of joy, it makes it stand out more.
Yeah.
But it also means that there are fewer people that are ready to receive it openly, or there are more people that are ready to receive it openly.
I actually think there's more people because I think that, we've seen in the last 12 months, I think it's around 38% increase in church attendance. Now, that church attendance for me is just one of many metrics. It used to be the metric, but it's one of many metrics. But the metric does tell me that people are searching.
Yes.
People are searching. And they're also confident to say to their friend who's struggling with depression, confusion, hey, if you come to this place, you might feel better.
Yeah. And it's a way of life.
Because it's like a completely different culture.
Yeah.
It's a kingdom culture. So when people come in, it's like there's joy. We had our Christmas show. We had over 10,000 people through the door.
Wow.
In December. And I was speaking to a professional guy just last week, and he said, John, I have to be honest with you, I had to leave the Christmas show. I said, oh, really? I'm sorry. What happened? He said, I had a sensory overload. I said, what do you mean? He said, everyone was so happy. Now we it's joy, but to them it's happiness.
Sure. Yeah.
He said, it was too much for me. And I was like, take him back. He said, I drove in, the people on the car park in the freezing cold were waving and smiling. He's like, where do you see that? You don't see that anywhere else. Where do you get a welcome in a car park? Then I walk in and people are welcoming me at the door. They're handing me chocolates. I walk in, everyone's singing. He said, I didn't know what to do with that.
Wow.
And you think that is a snapshot of society.
That's right. That's right.
So it's almost, can you believe the positivity is too much for people?
Yeah, and they know it's different. It's so different that they that's such a great story. And then it just makes you have compassion for the people that are stuck in the darkness of the world.
Yeah.
Because you're like, man, we have something, that we have this light joy that can break through.
But we have to choose it every day.
Okay.
We have to choose. No, I woke up this morning in Miami, and it was very easy to choose joy.
Yeah.
You know, the sun was shining, the blue skies.
Yes.
I was with my wife. You know, it was easy.
Yeah.
But come Friday morning, after I've been up all night on a flight, and I land in cold Heathrow Airport Friday morning, early, I'm gonna have to make a decision.
Yeah. And so when you say choose joy, you mean you're choosing to lean into the belief practices that you know bring joy, whether you feel them or not.
That's right. Joy is more than a feeling.
Yeah.
Because I don't always feel married.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm married.
Yeah, totally.
You know, sometimes it's tough. Marriage is tough. Maybe another podcast, we open that one up. But you go, I'm choosing to stick by the covenant I made in 2006. Because my feelings right now are, this isn't good. But my conviction is till death do us apart.
That's so good. That's so good, because what you're saying is, you're saying, I am married. That is my identity.
That is my identity.
And wow, I've never even thought of that. But you're saying that that's analogous to, I am a person of joy.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't feel it today. So what? That's still
Christ lives in me.
Yes.
And he is the source of my, with joy shall I draw waters from the wells of salvation. I have to go back to that well and go, I'm not feeling it, but God, I choose it today. And it's actually helping me, like literally.
Yeah.
I was on a plane from Philadelphia to Richmond on Saturday, and I'm tired. I just got off the plane from London, and for some reason I just left my iPad at security, brand new iPad, just left it. Okay. And I got to the hotel which is where I discovered I'd left it in Richmond, and Chantal goes, "Are you mad?" I said, "It's an iPad. I'm just going to choose joy now because that is our word for the year." I'm like, just choosing joy. It's just an iPad.
Totally.
It's just an iPad.
And we have a million of those little situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the incredible thing was the next day, someone discovered that story and bought me an iPad.
That's amazing.
And it was like, I think that decision.
Yeah.
It was like, it's almost like a faith decision as well.
Yeah.
To go, I choose joy. And I think joy pleases God.
Yeah.
Because it's actually faith. Faith pleases God. But joy is going, my faith is deeper, stronger than a possession.
That's right. That's right. And there's all these amazing verses about it. You know, in your presence there is fullness of joy. Return to me the joy of my
200
salvation.
verses in Scripture referring to joy.
What are some of the key ones you've taught on in this series?
Nehemiah is obviously the obvious one.
Yeah.
The joy of the Lord is my strength. But when you know, if you think about that, he was the king's cupbearer, King Artaxerxes' cupbearer. Mm-hmm. Well, and you guys are way better theologians than me, but you know, he was checking it for quality of food.
Yeah.
But also he was checking it for potential potency of I don't know.
Exactly. If someone tries to kill the king, they want Nehemiah to die, not the king.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Nehemiah, if you're talking about anxiety, if I said to you, now we're going to go to Chick-fil-A, which we should do, and they need to get to England quick. Yeah. But if we said we're going to Chick-fil-A, but hey, there's a possibility that someone might have poisoned it but I want you to try my food first.
Yeah.
You're going, well, I'm not sure about that and the anxiety. So he lived with anxiety, yet he chose joy.
Yes.
He chose it. And then the Bible says he was promoted.
That's right.
He was promoted. So when you choose joy, it doesn't just affect you. He becomes a governor.
That's so good. And then he's over there building the wall.
He's building the wall.
And he's doing the right thing. And it's more opposition, persecution, and it's ridiculous. And it's Nehemiah, not Ezra, where he has the sword and the trowel, right?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, man. What a beautiful picture of like, I'm going to make sure I'm defended, but I'm also not going to stop working.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the joy that would take to be able to have the strength to do that.
Yeah. And when he got there, he must have been so deflated, seeing what the Babylonians had done.
Yeah.
Yeah, he chose joy.
Man. Do you want to take a couple questions from, I got a list of questions from the Gram.
Yeah.
Take a couple?
Take them on, yeah.
We'll see what people said. Some of them are absolutely wild.
Oh dear.
So I'm not going to
Censored.
Yeah. I'm sure you have the same thing. You always have, people are hilarious. People are people, and they're trying to be funny, and they're also, I think, very often kind of trying to subtweet you, or they ask a question that's like the hardest question ever. I teach a Bible study at my church every Tuesday, and we do a live Q&A at the end. And this week, this person was like, why did God want violence in the book of Joshua? And I was like, We can do that question, but that's like one of the top 5 most difficult questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just like funny. It's fun.
Yeah.
Or like the quintessential one you get is like, did we choose God or did God choose us? And it's both.
Both, yeah.
That one's easier to answer because it's both. This one's from HUDs. I want to start into ministry. What's your best piece of wisdom? So you've been a pastor for a long time. What would you say to someone who's about to start?
I try and talk them out of it.
Yeah. That's what my dad said to me. I was like, I'm going to Bible college. He was like, don't do it unless you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Not can't as in wouldn't succeed, but can't as in I just can't. I'm not doing that.
Your dad's a legend, by the way.
Thank you.
If you're watching, you're a legend.
J-Mac.
He's
J-Mac
amazing.
taking the dub. So you would say don't do it.
No, what I would say is if I can talk you out of it, God never talked you into it. So I would...
Oh, that's brilliant.
I would just say to them, I want to share some of my story. Mm-hmm. I want to share the faith journey. Mm-hmm. This isn't a career path for you. I can't guarantee. 2 years, 10 months of my life in ministry, I lived by faith, which means I had in 3 different times, a year and 10 months, I had no income.
Wow.
Take nothing with you for the journey.
Yeah, it's just if you are not called from the Lord, that's not going to play once, let alone 3 times.
People come to me now, they want to talk to me about salary, hours, healthcare. I'm like, this isn't kind of how it works. I'm like, yeah. By the way, God will provide your salary. God will look after your health. But if you want those answers, I don't have those for you. What I can call you to is a journey of faith.
Especially if you're church planting.
Yeah.
Because you started from scratch, right?
Scratch.
Yeah, and that is so much more difficult on every front.
We were in Starbucks, 40 of us, with a dream. I remember the barista in Starbucks must have thought we're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what's especially in England.
Yeah, look at this guy.
We're singing what a beautiful name it is. He's singing what name we talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would get back to the question. I would just say I would have a coffee with people and see whether they're cut for a life of faith.
It's so beautiful. And I think the Bible also offers some of those hesitation remarks. Not many of you should become teachers. Those of you who teach will be judged more strictly.
Love that.
So I think that not only is what you're saying true, it's also really biblical. It's not like, oh my gosh, you just became a Christian, rush out and do full-time vocational ministry. It's like, I'm a Christian, we are all ministers, we are all ministering. Some of us, God will call to do that as a vocation, some for a season, some for a lifetime.
Correct.
I had this kid in my youth group who said, I know what I want to do. I said, what do you want to do with your life? He was like 14. He was like, I want to become rich and give a ton of money to the church. And I was like, that sounds great, man. That sounds great. Good for you. And I think there's perhaps something, to that. Okay, let's see what else.
And also, what are you giving now? What are you giving now to the church?
Exactly. Exactly, because you're not going to start giving when you get wealthy.
Yeah.
If you're not giving now, you won't give later.
You can't give a car away unless you can buy someone a coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
So it starts.
Exactly. This guy said he listens to sermons and hears pastors cursing during their messages. What's up with that? I've not heard that.
Yeah, I don't really hear that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're here to judge pastors or leaders doing it. I think we have a responsibility to different cultures around the world. We, as a church, we did a international Sunday. We had 52 different nations represented in our church, which is beautiful. Like, every tribe, every tongue. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
But I'm also very aware of my language isn't just to a British culture. It's African and Indian. And
yeah, you've got everybody right there.
Everyone's right there.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you can wear a hat in church, and the Europeans love it, but the Africans are like, that's so disrespectful.
Wow.
So when you wear a hat, just be aware of that. I'm not telling you to wear or don't wear. I'm just saying be aware that when you come up on the stage with your cap on, there's a group of people in our church who find that disrespectful. Just because their culture.
And it's totally different from
totally
American
different.
Culture,
I'm sitting here with shorts on, but I preached in India a couple of years ago, and I just rocked up with shorts, and the guy just said, you can't do that.
Everyone's left.
He said, if you go up, he said, it's completely, your legs are just not up to it. But, I think the younger generation, we've all got to be aware of who our audience is. John Maxwell says, first thing is know your audience.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I like the idea of being sensitive to other cultures, but not telling people what to do or not to do.
Correct.
Because I think that is really cool. I heard a story one time about a Baptist pastor who went on a mission trip to Africa, got a bunch of people saved, and then started teaching them to wear suits like he wore in America. And I was just like, ugh. Like, first part, great. Second part,
it's not what we do.
Yeah, and also, who cares?
Who cares?
And also, it's hot. Why are they wearing full suits? Yeah. They're not in Minneapolis. Yeah. And also, their clothes are really cool.
Yeah.
And their drums are really cool. I want to hear African worship music.
Totally.
We don't need to bring like a Taylor acoustic guitar over there and teach some guy to play How Great Is Our God.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not going to curse in church, but...
Only at the football match.
Oh, God help me.
I mean, it would be pretty hard. It would be pretty hard not to. Thoughts on cigars and pipe smoking? He didn't say for pastors, but we'll say for pastors or for Christians.
Again, each to their own. I'm not a cigar smoker. Many of the greats are. Spurgeon.
We had a couple cigars last night because if you're watching, we're at a conference in Miami right now. Yeah, I think it's natural.
Yeah. I just think some of the stuff that people get caught up on is just so irreverent. I'm not irreverent, irrelevant.
Yeah, totally.
It's just some of the stuff we discuss. I'm like, small minds talk about small things, and I just think
and I think people don't understand meat offered to idols. Like, they're like, should you or should you not smoke a cigar? It's like, okay, well, that's a natural substance. You should be asking if people should be putting Red 40 and McDonald's into their system.
Correct.
Because that is a lot closer to the line of not worshiping God with your body than smoking something that is, like a tobacco or something. That being said, meat offered to idols is like, hey, they just were cooking the steak during this satanic ritual. And if it doesn't bother your conscience, just eat it.
Yeah.
And so I think that I agree with you. When Christians are talking about that, they're way on the other side.
Yeah, way on the other side.
I do think that we should make sure not to flaunt it. And I think that is I think
we should be
tough.
respectful of people and respectful of other people's positions on things. And, so I just think it's just all comes back to wisdom.
I felt like that recently. I'm a vinyl collector. I listen to a lot of music. And sometimes I would do Q&As, and I would post the picture of the record I was listening to behind my answer.
Yeah.
And because I love music, I love
Yeah.
talking about music.
Yeah.
But then I just thought, that there's certain types of Christians that are wonderful, and that might bother them if I'm listening to like the White Stripes or even like Kendrick Lamar or something.
Correct, yeah.
Does not bother my conscience. So I'm fine with it. But I felt like, you know what, I need to stop doing that, because
Yeah.
I don't want to put a stumbling block in front of someone else, and that I don't want to flaunt. This is exactly what the New Testament says. I don't want to flaunt my freedom in Christ.
Correct.
And say you have to have that freedom. No, I do not want you to sin against your conscience.
Yeah.
I
just think it just comes down to wisdom, balance, health, all those things. And, and also let's stop judging people. Mm-hmm. So if you have a cigar and I don't, that's fine. Like,
totally.
Let's just be relaxed with that.
Yeah.
Let's
Totally.
not, it's the small things that.
Now, if the person is smoking it and blowing the smoke in your face and saying, hey, you can't have a cigar, you baby, maybe that's a bit too far.
Step too far.
Yes. Hey, thank you so much for joining me and taking the time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I think what is going on in your church is amazing.
Thank you.
I'd encourage you guys who are here because of me to go follow Jon Norman on Instagram, follow his church on YouTube, watch some of his sermons. And I think it's really good, if you're American like I am, it's really good to watch people minister in other countries on the internet and learn some things. And I hope this content has really blessed you guys today. I'd love it if you would share it with a friend, like, comment, subscribe, all of that jazz. And I'll see you guys here next time.